might not see the outcomes, we might see the clues, but when you plant a seed, it's gotta grow before it blooms. Oh.
Aloha. Brazilian farmer Drew, Sacred Herbs and Botanicals, coming at you from this cool morning, just near Halloween, and it makes me think about Maine. Is this mushroom spooky? And there's a popular poem around it that goes, "They're mass rotted off of them, flake by flake, till the thick stalk struck like a murderer's stake, where rags of loose flesh yet tremble on high, infecting the winds that wander on by." This was in the year 1820 by a poet, Percy Bysshe Shelley, as part of a poem called The Sensitive Plant. But as you can see, we're not talking about a plant, we're talking about a fungi today. And its Latin name is Coprinus comatus, in the phylum Basidiomycota or Basidiomycetes, and that's in the family of 𝐤𝐭 or 𝐤𝐭. Just depends who you're talking to, as I like to say. Some of its common names are known as Shaggy Mane, Shaggy ink cap, chicken drumstick mushroom, or lawyer's wig. It usually grows from spring to autumn and can be found in a variety of habitats from Europe, North America, and Asia. And it's frequently found in disturbed ground or lawns and on the edges of dirt roads, also on wood chips or hard packed ground, and growing alone or in clusters in straight lines or in fairy rings. There was DNA studies basically over the last decade have made it clear that Coprinus comatus is closely related to species of 𝐤𝐢𝐭𝐡 and Lepiota, but only distantly related to most other mushrooms whose gills turn to a black ink, and we'll talk about that. For instance, what comes to mind is Coprinopsis adamantarea and Coprinellus micaceus. They're all loosely referred to as inky caps. These mushrooms were all once under the Coprinus genus, yet the genus now only holds Coprinus comatus and a few other similar varieties. Coprinus means living on dung. That's true for many of the ink caps, but not for this one, at least to my knowledge. So comatus means hairy, and that refers to the shaggy scales on the cap surface. Looking at its features, the stem can grow up to 8 inches high, frequently tapering to an apex, and it's smooth, white, easily separable from the cap, and it's hollow. There's a presence of a ring on the stem, and there's a string-like strand fibers inside the stem's hollow cavity. That turns out to be better predictors of the genus Coprinus than the melting gills that we see. The cap can be up to 6 inches wide, oval to rounded cylindrical when young, and then it expands to this bell-shaped and has these like lifting margins as it ages that turn to a black ink. So it starts out like whitish and has like a brownish center. It's large and has these shaggy scales. And the gills are free from the stem. They're white. They can turn like pinkish, then black, and then to a black ink. They're very crowded and packed together. So the genus Coprinus and its distant relatives are all known as the inky caps, as I've mentioned. And because of this unique characteristics in their ability to deliquesce, their gills, in other words, self-digest to release their spore. And most of these species have gills that are very thin and very close to one another, which that doesn't allow for easy release of the spores. You know, this elongated shape that you can see here does not allow for spores to be shot off the basidia like other mushrooms that get caught in the air. Instead, the autodigestion begins at the end of the cap and proceeds inwards, and the cap opens up and the edge kind of curls upwards, exposing this successive layer of pores to the air, as well as it starts to melt. That's how it spreads its pores. These inky caps are really masters of spores and spore release. The Shaggy Mane produces roughly 9,000 million spores in about 3 days. That works to about 30,000 spores per second. So they're very short-lived. And yes, the ink was used in the past for writing and can be used in painting. So we're gonna cover more in part 2, but I want to say yo man, if you get that reference. Make sure to check out part 2 of this video, because we're going to delve into some of the astromycological and alchemical medicinal qualities, as well as edibility of Coprinus comatus. So I hope you've enjoyed part 1, and I will see you there.
We might not see the outcomes, we might see the clues, but when you plant a seed, it's gotta grow before it blooms. Oh.